Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of our class. So far you should have submitted a draft of Essay 1 and you'll be getting my feedback shortly. And I just want to take the chance to go over some important concepts for week 4. One of the things I want to encourage you to do as you're doing your work is to set an intention. Sometimes just taking a moment before you begin, taking a breath, and setting one positive intention for your work time can be really helpful. So if you have a chance, take out a piece of paper, or even just in your head if you don't have paper, and write down one positive goal you have to get out of this week. One of the major focuses of this week is using quotations in your writing. We've gone over summary before, and quotations are going to come up a lot in your papers. So I want to go over some main things that you want to consider as you're revising your draft. The first thing to think about is when to quote, summarize, or paraphrase. So you quote when the writer's words are memorable, interesting, maybe the only way to say it, particular vocabulary is involved. You quote when the writer says it best. That's when you want to quote. You don't want to quote things that are too long, but you can quote things that are short. So then when do you summarize and paraphrase? Summary will appear in this paper in the introduction when you give an overview of both of the texts, along with the writer's names in signal phrases for those summaries. You summarize when you want to include a big portion of the article, maybe a couple pages, but you can't quote it all because that's too much to quote. So that's when you want to summarize. You paraphrase when you would like to put someone's ideas into your own words. Anytime that you're using these, make sure that you're citing and make sure that you're varying them. So you're not always quoting, but sometimes you're paraphrasing and mixing it up. The next thing to think about, when you are formatting a quotation, do you use a comma or a colon? I want you to check out the rules on page 117 in your book to make sure that you have that skill down. Signal phrases and flow. I know we've been focusing on signal phrases. Last week, there's a page in the module that has example signal phrases as well as great verbs to use. Make sure that you are reading the signal phrase out loud with the quotation and the rest of the sentence so that you know that it makes sense. Sometimes our signal phrase sort of is choppy or it doesn't flow right into the sentence. So make sure that it makes sense and it sounds like it flows into the thing that's coming next. Quotation within a quotation and block format. So if you're quoting an article, a part of the article that has a quotation in it, you have a quotation within a quotation. For the inside quotation, you use single quotation marks, and for the outside quotation, you use double quotation marks. A block quotation happens when you need to quote something that's more than 4 lines of text. In that case, you do a double indent and do not use quotation marks. You can see the format for these on page 123. Also, review the rules for ellipses and brackets. Ellipses are one of the things that are most misused in writing. Another thing to point out, make sure you quote exactly as it is in the book. So make sure you're not misspelling words or leaving out words or changing the words, that you quote exactly as they say it. Now, if you know the rules for brackets, if you need to insert a word, you can use the brackets to insert another word into the quotation. If you need extra help with those signal phrases and verbs, 131 and 132 can help you with that in your book. And if you need more practice with all of these things, there are a ton of exercises that you can use in your book to practice. And if you complete them, I'm happy to look over them and give you feedback. Okay, next. I want to go over specifically the difference between direct, indirect quotation, and an interrupter, because sometimes these are misused in writing. So I have a sentence here at the bottom that says, "The desire to write grows with writing, Desiderius Erasmus." And we're just going to say for this exercise it was found on page 32 for citation purposes. It's not in your book, but I've just made up a page number. So the idea is we'll do a direct quotation, which is when you have a signal phrase at the beginning with a comma or a colon. An indirect quotation is when you have a signal phrase with the word that and no comma, and a quotation with a signal phrase interrupter in the middle. Okay, so if you want to try this, take that sentence at the bottom and try to write a direct, indirect, and interrupter quotation format. Pause the video and then check back in. I'm going to go to the next slide. All right, so here are some examples. The ones at the top are direct quotations. Desiderius Erasmus explains, comma, the quotation. Notice again the in-text citation here of the page number, and the period comes after, not before. Desiderius Erasmus explains the secret, colon, quotation. That is different than an indirect quotation, where we use the word that, and then the quotation flows with the sentence. Desiderius Erasmus believes that the desire to write grows with writing. Okay? And the last one, with an interrupter, whoops. The desire to write, Desiderius Erasmus explains, comma, I know you might not be able to see this, grows with writing. So you have that signal phrase in the middle with commas on either side of the signal phrase. All right, so thinking about all of this stuff with quotations, we want to focus on revising and editing Essay 1 this week. So here are my tips for doing that. Review the research paper writing tips, which is a page in this week's module. These are common mistakes that I've seen students make over the past 10 years of teaching, and make sure that you're not doing any of the things in the paper and you're taking the tips and looking over your paper with them. Secondly, use the rubric as a checklist. This is how I'm grading you. There's nothing else I'm basing it on. All of the points are accounted for. So take a look at the rubric and, think about, okay, this is about the thesis. Does my thesis meet the expectations of the rubric? And you can just go down the list of the rubric in that way. Third thing, when you get my feedback, consider it. Think about the points that I'm making. Make sure you can see my comments, and if not, contact me. I'm going to make comments directly on your draft. So make the changes that I suggest. The suggestions are meant to help you better your draft. And if I don't comment on something, it doesn't mean you shouldn't revise it. So look at the rubric and make sure that you're meeting all of those categories. My fourth suggestion is read out loud. We can pick up on flow, on grammar, on editing, on sentence structure so much more easily when we read something out loud. If something doesn't flow well, we hear it, okay? So if some of you are more like audio-based learners and thinkers, this will really help you. Another tip, work on your verbs as you're editing. Think about avoiding those to be verbs and making really strong verbs in your writing to make your points that much more clear and powerful. And lastly, polish. Make sure that you don't have any misspellings or typos. Make sure everything is formatted correctly with your citations, and you should be good to go. Strong verbs is also a big deal this week. You're working on avoiding to be verbs and passive voice in your writing. I just want to share with you a couple examples, and then you can practice and do the assignment for this week with the verbs. So the first example is Shelley is very tired from track practice. Sometimes when we have the word is, we can think about, okay, what is she and how could I make that into a verb? In this case, I switched the order of nouns in the sentence. So I made track practice the subject, I chose the word exhausted, and then I put Shelley at the end. So track practice exhausted Shelley. A lot stronger, a lot more concise, a lot more clear. Second example. The test was aced by the student. Whenever you have a word like was or a to be verb combined with a past participle of a verb, ace, aced, aced, right? And by afterwards, this is often passive voice. So what you do in that case, again, is flip the order. Who is actually doing something in the sentence? The student. The student aced the test. This is a lot more concise and a lot more clear. So good luck with that assignment this week, and let me know if you have questions or need help. Let's make this a really great week. Here's what you have to be doing. Participate in the discussion. Review your annotations from reading assignments. Maybe you'll pick up on something you need to do as far as formatting your essay. Maybe you'll find another point in one of the essays that you want to write about. So make sure that you're reviewing those things just in case. Revise, edit, and submit Essay 1 for a grade. Do your best, folks. Let me know if you need help. Let me know if you want to set up a conference. Continue to practice verb strength training. So work on strengthening your muscles with verbs. How do you make them stronger? Practice. It's just something that comes with time, and eventually when you write sentences, all of a sudden your verbs will just start being stronger naturally, which will be awesome. And I just want to point out, next week, the reading assignment will be to read one chapter of your choice from Pursuing Happiness, and this is the basis for your argument essay. So if you want to work ahead, or you think you might you might not have a lot of time next week, you can get started on those readings over the weekend. All right, so have a great week. If you need any help, let me know, and I'll see you out in cyberspace.